Yeah, so Lindsay convinced us that this is what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about hiring and tips on hiring and really all about kind of that front end process to bring the best people into your organization and also help you identify those resources that are the best fit.
Yeah.
Love it.
Is
Smart.
that, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I know Alex is excited.
Super excited.
I'm
Yeah.
excited from my seat because it's so true. I mean, we talked recently about termination and getting the right people in the first place alleviates a little bit of that termination issue that you run into.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you've got the right person that comes in at the beginning, the chances are if and when they do leave, it's going to go really well. And if and when they do leave, it's going to be either done really pleasantly and very respectfully, and no one's burning bridges either way. And then the likelihood that they're going to leave at all is much lower. And you know, it's okay. So all of us have gone on dates. All of us have met that right person, even if it was just that right person for that evening or that week or whatever it was, right? So we've all met that right person for the moment or for whatever length of time, right? In our lives, and in that moment, we feel like things, like at the moment, things seem really, really good. But many of us, not of course not Tara or Alex or Lindsay, but some of us have maybe thought that right moment was the right moment, only later then to realize maybe this wasn't such a good choice. And that's when all the problems start, right? Now, if in our personal lives and in our work lives, we maybe took a little more time and made sure that we had like a set procedure, or like, here are the things we ought to be asking about. Here are the things we ought to be looking for. Here are the things we ought to talk about before we jump into a relationship at work. Chances are those work relationships would go much better. And of course, not to creep into people's personal lives. Our personal lives would probably go much better too. But I'd love to just go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in and say, so you're saying we should maybe date a little bit before we get married?
Well, yeah, I mean, with a working relationship, it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, there are some situations where you can bring somebody on with the expectation that it's going to be a trial period, but even then, you've got to make sure you're following all the rules and documentation. And it's not just as simple as it's a trial period, and at the end of it, well, there's no risk. I mean, there's some risk there, but even before then, I think maybe better more. I mean, yeah, if we're dating, you go on a date with somebody, you're going for lunch or tea, whatever it is. You're probably not in that first date going to dive into things like, do you want kids? Do you prefer to purchase on credit, or do you like to pay cash? Like, who do you
Why
want to run
not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Like, it depends on the season of life you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Like, I don't want to waste my time here, but do you want to cook at home? Do you like to go out to eat? Like, who do you want to run the finances? Who's doing laundry? Like, what's that look like? Like, who's cooking? Like, what's that look like? Who's the cleaner, right? Who's the person that cleans the house? Who's the person that cleans the kitchen? Like, you could just like list all that out and just see if you're fully aligned, and then assuming there's the other magic that often needs to be there, then you probably be happier. Like, if you think back to maybe it's not somebody that's a significant other. Or partner, if you will, but maybe it's just like a roommate. You think back to the roommates, you're like, wow, that was a bad choice. Again, it's probably because you didn't cover things like, who's going to clean up the apartment or the place where we're living, like who gets to do what at what time, how late are you out, like all these things, right? So asking better questions up front, I would say, could save a lot of misery on the tail end. I think that just kind of builds on what Lindsay said initially.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a little peek into my personal life. I definitely did better in the dating realm when I was single, when it was like I took some time and I thought about what was important to me in my life first. And then I did go into dates asking questions, and questions that were very aligned with what I was looking for. And all of a sudden it became really clear on date one or date two that this person was or was not a potential match for me, right? Because I had those questions in mind already. I had that alignment that I was thinking with. So if we can do that with employment relationships, where you go into it asking the questions that align with your culture, that align with what you're trying to do and get done, then you can more quickly figure out if this person may or may not be a good fit.
So, yeah. So, Tara, Alex, do y'all think that having a clearly stated purpose for your company is a good first step, and why?
Obviously. I say obviously, that may not be obvious for everybody. If it's clear what it is you're going to be doing as, you know, as someone comes on, like, hey, what am I going to be doing here? Or what's our overall goal? Or what, if, I don't know, I'm going to make something up. Let's say we're selling horses to people or something. If you've got someone who is just absolutely hates horses, it's probably not going to be a good fit, right?
What?
Because overall, like, even if they're good for the role of doing something for the company, at that core, they hate what it is we do. And obviously that's a silly made up example, but I think others who are listening to this or watching this can fill in some gaps and maybe look back at some hires and say, oh yeah, we probably should have seen that one.
I think in a previous episode, we did touch on something similar to this about, you know, getting very clear on company culture and like expectations, all these things, and not going into it like, oh my God, I met this person and we get along so well. And I really like, you know, the person and their personality, but like they probably, like you said, don't maybe align with company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, I mean, step one is understanding why you do what you do as a company. And that's often called purpose, or it's actually definitionally called the purpose. The purpose is why you do what you do. There's lots of definitions floating out there that have been made up. But if we look at the one in the dictionary and we look at like what does purpose mean? Purpose means the why. Like, why do we do what we do? So for example, at Amazing Workplace, what we do every day is to improve people's lives. So when we interview a candidate, one of the things we talk about is it's our purpose to improve people's lives. So let's just level set. That means two things. One, our goal in everything we do is to improve someone's life. And number two, we believe it can be done. Otherwise, it wouldn't be our purpose, right? So if you don't believe that helping people is possible, if you don't believe that helping people's lives get better is possible, if you don't believe that, you know, people's lives can be improved, then this is not going to be a good purpose fit. And then to Alex's point, if doing those things and talking about those things and celebrating those things on a daily, weekly basis annoys the crap out of you, you're going to be miserable. Right? That's just not, you're going to be like, you're going to go home every night and be like, oh my God, we had another meeting where they were talking about how much we improved this person's life and I just think it's all BS and I hate it. Like, well, then you shouldn't work here. Right. Because you're going to hate working here. So yeah. And I think that this is, you know, like really great recruiting does start with just sound leadership. It starts with leaders picking a purpose that they believe aligns with their organization and then building a culture around that purpose, building a culture that supports that goal. So again, I'll use us as an example, and you can all jump in here. You know, we have as our purpose to improve people's lives, but we also have these culture characteristics that we celebrate every month. And if we go through them and talk about them, every one of them is practiced and celebrated and talked about because it helps us achieve that goal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a big picture thing too. Those, maybe someday we'll get into those monthly themes that we talk about, those culture characteristics, but they all work together to achieve that goal, right? So even if somebody maybe likes January's culture characteristic, but then we get around to February and they're like, ugh, we're doing this again. You know, it's not 100% alignment.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we can use ours as an example, but, you know, as you're in an interview, one of our culture characteristics is make it simple, which is this month. It's the month of March, or March is the month of make it simple. So we've had people that we've worked with before that just don't believe that things can be made simple.
Yeah.
Things are
Or that
complicated.
they should be made
Yeah, or they
simple.
should be. Yeah. We should keep them complicated. Well,
right, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love that you instill in everything. You know, everything can be made simple for everybody to understand. Understanding obviously is key. So
Yeah,
not
and
simple
we all do that here. I mean, we all really make I think an effort to keep things simple. And that's so, going back to the interview, because we're about hiring, like I don't want to lose sight of, the topic here, right? So we've talked about purpose and why. We've talked about, kind of expanding or building on that to get a list of your culture characteristics, which are just words that would describe how your people act. Because if you don't have words to describe your organization and all you're sharing is what you do, which is not the same as how you do it, that's where most companies fail. That's where most companies fall down in hiring. And it's the difference between hiring great talent as well as attracting great talent. Because if you're able to communicate why you do what you do, how you do what you do, not just what you do, then you're going to attract the right people up front. If you get that information into a job description, if you have it in your initial meetings, your first round of interviews, right? And you're filtering people based on, hey, here's why we do what we do every day, and here's how we act. Now, that may or may not be your cup of tea, but if it is, we'd love to talk to you. And really being open about that, being transparent about that. If you're an in-office culture, then tell people, hey, we work in the office and we're excited about it. We celebrate it. If you're a work from home culture, then celebrate that. If you're a hybrid, celebrate that. But don't hide it. Don't try to pretend you're one thing and you're not, because that will also completely undermine this hiring activity.
Which
100%.
goes both ways, right? Because
Yes,
if
yes.
I'm interviewing and I'm just sort of putting up what I think this company that I'm talking to wants to hear,
Yeah.
okay, great. How long are you going to keep up that fake, persona, that fake, I totally agree and I'm totally bought in? You're going to be miserable and it's going to be obvious. You can't, I don't know, you can't fake it for very long. Like, I don't know, maybe 6 months. Maybe you can make it 6 months. And then someone's going to definitely sniff out that you are full of it.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the fastest ways to potentially destroy a culture is by selling a fantasy, right? And then
Or any relationship, right? I mean, you're out on a date and somebody like, oh yeah, I'm blah 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 blah, and then like 3 weeks into like dating, you're like, you're not that way at all. Like,
Yeah. I thought you loved doing laundry. Why is it piled up over there?
Well, with that, actually, that touches back to more of like a sort of tied kind of to the resume, kind of to the hiring. It's that you almost want some sort of established, the work history, things like that, references. As you say, like, oh, you say you love doing laundry. Like, okay, well, do we have anything on the resume that shows that you've successfully done laundry? You almost
Right.
want like a dating resume, right?
yeah.
Totally.
let me
Well,
talk to your mom. No.
Yeah.
There's your dating resume.
Yeah, there's a lot of, we're going to talk to your parents. Alex, I'm really glad you touched on this, and it's just a great hiring practice, and it protects you from a lot of potential lawsuit risk, and that is to make the time to contact a person's previous employers and actually get references from them. It's interesting to me, the difference in the way that people respond to a request for a reference. Those that have nothing to hide typically are like, sure, happy to. Who do you want to, like, there's just, and those that are afraid or they've done something bad or they're trying to hide it, they tend to be the most nervous, which is also a really interesting observation I've made throughout the years as I've been hiring. And in some cases, it's nothing, it's just that they didn't have a great relationship with the previous manager. In other cases, it's been things that we're glad we found out, like that would have been a disastrous hire.
Yeah. To that same point, though, if you just simply didn't have a great relationship with that manager, I always find it very interesting and very telling of a person's personality when you ask why the previous employment ended, how they handle that conversation. If they just dive into, oh my gosh, the management was awful, they were so bad at scheduling, they never knew what was going on. Come on. We're not here to just like drag your previous employers, through the mud. I want to hear what really happened. Give me the quick and simple of it. If you guys did not align on scheduling, say it like that. Don't put all the blame on them. There was two roads here and they didn't work out together. It's not just the previous manager.
And that really highlights another thing to remember is that as you're talking with the job applicant in the interview, this is quite possibly the best it's ever going to get. Like this is the first date. Like They got dressed up, they got showered, cleaned up, shaved, whatever. They are there because they really want to get this job. At least that's the assumption. So if you're not impressed or blown away or like, wow, what a great candidate in that very first moment where they are trying their best to do their best, things going to look 6 months from now.
Right.
Exactly. It's also worth noting that if you've got someone, and this is anywhere, right? If you've got someone who, when they're with you, is sort of talking down about other people, you can pretty much be sure that when they're talking to other people, they're talking that way about you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Definitely. So on that idea of that first interview, questions to ask to really align with your culture and what your company is, whether it's a super upbeat culture and you're looking for super upbeat people, or you're just a put your nose down and work culture and you're looking for people that are willing and happy to do that. How do you go about asking those questions without maybe necessarily having a script in front of you that just gives you, these are the 15 questions you ask in this interview?
Well, I mean, I think the first response is that there is nothing wrong with having a script. Like, if you think about like, what are the consequences of forgetting something? What are the consequences of making a mistake with hiring? Well, the consequences are it could script your culture, it can upset your people that you do love and want to keep. It could create potential lawsuit risk. So having those questions written down, there's nothing wrong with that. And I've talked to many leaders over the years, and people have got different opinions, but don't let things like personal embarrassment or things that just don't matter get in the way of actually just good business sense. If you need to give a talk on a particular subject and you need to have notes in front of you, then have notes in front of you. Like if you, there's anyway. So I can definitely get on my lecture. I could lecture about this for a while, but the short version is have that list in front of you, and there's nothing wrong with having that list. And just make sure you don't forget it. And you can even let the person know as they sit down, like, hey, got a list of questions. I just want to make sure I don't forget anything, if that's okay. And a lot of times applicants will come in with their own list of questions, right? And they'll say, oh, it's actually kind of funny, and here you go. I had my list of questions, right? And I've had applicants do that. So people are understanding. And if the person in front of you isn't, they're not a good fit anyway.
Agreed.
Yep, that's kind of text one there. Yeah.
Get them
Yeah.
out of here.
So when thinking about those questions, though, what do you take into consideration when you are preparing to go into an interview?
Well, I'll let Tara and Alex answer first.
Go ahead, Alex. I'm the most nervous interviewer and speaker ever. I will be the first to.
Well, you bring up a great other side of the coin on that.
That's
Yeah.
true. And
We can
also,
talk about
I do
that.
have one go-to that I always hit up just to start out, because I find it's a good way to just start them talking, and sort of help them get through that nervousness. And it's, what do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do when you're not working?
Yeah.
Because then we usually find some common point. Usually something that they like to do is something that I have done, or something that I also like to do, and then we can just chit chat about that, and then now we're sort of comfortably just talking, and I can go into anything else that's on my list.
I do think those are the absolute best if you want, I mean, in just my opinion, to just have a conversation, right? Instead of that nervousness of like, I'm going in front of a panel and people are just firing stuff at me. I would much rather have like good back and forth dialogue. I feel like that's how you're truly going to get to know and, kind of figure somebody out ish on that first date.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, Tara. I mean, you're spot on. The fact is that jobs and interviews are mechanically about finding a person who will be able to do specific tasks, right? I have this job. The job is to, make these coasters, and I need the person to be able to take this. I don't think it's marble, but we'll call it stone, whatever this stone material is. Take this stone to get it in the right shape, and then on the back of it, I want them to glue this cork thing, right? That's the job, and that could be the job. That's in the job description. Now, that I can go find a person to do that, and I could maybe find lots of people that are willing to do that, and there would be different levels of, enthusiasm, excitement, productivity, so on. But if you want that person to be a great fit for your company, and you're wanting to do it in such a way that you're reducing risk to your company, like future firing or upsets, understanding who the person is in many ways, in my opinion, even more important than understanding that they can do this job. Because, and I've said this in many, many interviews with many people, it's fine for us to want an individual to join our team. But what's even more important to me is that the person that I'm talking to really understands what our team is like. And they look at that and say, yeah, I want that. And I don't just mean the job, I mean the people, that they understand our culture, our purpose, and that they look at that and go, wow, yeah, that's something I want to do. Like, I get my job as the coaster, but I'm super excited to work at a company that focuses on improving and let people's lives. Yeah, making things simple. Like, those are cool things, and I'm on board with that. They're not just saying that to get the job, but they genuinely mean it. And it's getting into those personal conversations that gives you a better picture of who that person is and whether it's going to be a good fit for your culture. Because here's the disservice. And like, you've got to think about it from the other point of view. It's not just that you're protecting your company and you're trying to get the best people. You don't want to ruin someone's life and waste their life. You don't want them to join your team because they got a bunch of money and then 5 years later they look back and they were like, that was the most miserable experience of my life. Like, you as a hiring manager had every chance to find and avoid that for them. And if you just gotten to know them a little better, you just made the time to explore what really makes them excited in life and whether that's a good fit with your team, you could have helped them either move on and find an opportunity elsewhere that they would absolutely love, or avoid a big mistake that they would regret. And there's a lot that goes into hiring, and it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, I go through that simple
Definitely.
math when I'm interviewing, right? The simple math is 24 hours in a day. Let's say 8 is sleeping. That's a third. Let's say 8 is working. That's a
Wait a
third.
minute. Yeah, you get 8 hours of sleep?
I'm just doing
Yeah.
easy math.
Easy math. We're making it simple.
Easy math. And that leaves 8 not at work. Well, so that means that half of your awake time is at work. So
Yeah.
to your point, the people you're hanging out with, and what you're doing, you probably are going to want to like those people and do what it is that you guys are all doing together, because that's half of your awake time in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
some
and
amount of
fulfillment
time,
is
right?
right. No, you're fine. I was just saying fulfillment is a big thing. You want to feel happy about how you're spending your time, right? And there's the argument that, it's never a waste of time because you can always learn lessons wherever you're at in life. But I would argue that we can help
Yeah.
people get to a place where they truly are happy much quicker if you take a step back and really, really get to know somebody before you put them in that role. Romantic relationships, employment relationships, one way or the other, you can help improve their life and get them to where they want to be and where they will be happy quicker if you just get to know them a little bit first.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lindsay, you were asking a question about how we prepare for questions?
Yeah, like how do you decide what questions are important to ask during that interview?
Yeah, well, I think we've all jumped on Alex's, wagon or car, jumped in his car on his wagon, on the importance of just getting to know the person and seeing if that relationship feels like it would be a healthy one both ways, right? I think the other questions that I prepare are really based on the role. So if I'm looking to hire someone in a role where I know I'm going to probably have to teach them how to do the job, I'm going to ask questions about how willing they are to learn. I'm going to ask questions that maybe explore how often they've jumped into previous roles where they just didn't know how to do the job and really enjoyed that learning process to understand and learn how to do the thing. I'm also going to really organize my questions at least on paper in my mind, into kind of 3 big buckets. One is most importantly, I want to find out how upbeat this person is. I want to get a sense of what is their level of positivity versus negativity. Now, to each their own, and there's nothing wrong with all of the in-betweens. There's nothing wrong with hiring people that are more sarcastic and negative, and there's nothing wrong with hiring people that are super positive. But it's really important that your organization understands, like, where do you want to kind of draw the line? If sarcasm is not something that's really done in the office or acceptable or it would hurt people's feelings, then you probably don't want to hire super sarcastic people. They're going to upset everybody in the workplace, right? So understanding those kind of personality, that scale of like how upbeat do you want your people to be. I tend to find that people that are more positive and upbeat tend to do better at work in my experience. Number two is I'm looking for how hard they work. And I have questions that are kind of tied to that, questions that are really structured to better understand, like, well, what does a normal work week look for you, or what does it look like historically? Or like, how do you view work, and getting a sense of how they approach their work or how they approach getting work done. And then lastly, and kind of least important, is whether they can do the job itself. I mean, I know it's kind of weird, but they're all important, but of the three, it's the one that I care least about. And I've had great success at hiring upbeat people who work hard, who knew nothing about the job, and they did phenomenal. And I've had nothing but horror stories if I hire the person that does the job really well, but they're missing the other two. So
Definitely. I think on that second one that you mentioned there, as far as finding out, other roles that they've been in where they've learned a new skill set or they've had to go through that training process, like from ground zero to learning how to do the job that's in front of them. That one is super important to me when it comes to maybe, I guess you could say, tolerance levels. Like, for instance, if you're working remote and you're in front of a computer 6 hours solid every day, learning how comfortable that person is with a computer is really important, right? If you're working in a factory and it's super loud in there for 8 hours straight, minus your lunch break, how are they with loud noise? Finding those little points that will give you more insight into how they will do in your environment.
if you're a cranberry producer, do they like spiders?
That's
Right. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
People might not know. There's a
I
lot
know
of
the term.
spiders.
I don't know.
But it's bog.
Oh, yeah.
Bog spiders.
What?
Yes. Good.
When they flood the bogs to then go and get all of the cranberries, the best anti-pest thing to use for the cranberries is spiders. They're naturally occurring. They take care of the pests. But when you flood the bog, all the spiders have to climb up something. And if you're the one out in the bog and you're collecting the things, they're going to climb up you.
Yeah.
So as long
Next
as
time
you-
you're over, we're watching Dirty Jobs, Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to do that job.
it's an important, that's a great example of one of those things where you don't want to lie to just get the job.
Yeah.
Right.
Say, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trained
And a
by
lot of
spiders.
people interviewing for the cranberry juice scene may not know about the spiders. So you should probably give them that heads up before they come in.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, exactly. Don't lie. But you're asking such a great question, Lindsay, and I don't want to leave it because it's a valuable one, which is how does a person prepare for an interview? Let's just start with, please prepare. Make the time to
Yes.
look at the person's resume. Make the time to understand something about this person before you meet with them. One of the things that's really important in an interview is creating an environment where the person you're speaking with is comfortable enough to allow you to be able to honestly evaluate them as a resource. And a big part of that as an interviewer is making the time to understand the person that you're speaking to, their background, and maybe something about them that you might find interesting. It could have been geographically, something in the resume was tied to, a state or a location or a company that you're familiar with or that you particularly like, or you have some connection, right? That is a great lead-in as you're getting to start the conversation, where you kind of maybe start with admiring something about their resume or about their background that you do, in fact, obviously genuinely admire. And it can in many ways help them just relax a bit, right? That this is not some adversarial, this isn't combat. We're not in a ring with swords or axes or whatever. We're just here to sit down and chat and see if this is a good relationship fit.
Yeah. And I think there are many different styles of interviews out there, right? There are definitely just the open call interviews where people can show up and sit down and have a quick interview and see if they're right for the job. But if you're in a position where you are screening candidates ahead of time, like Sean said, prepare, do your research. Everybody has the internet out there. type their name into Google. See if they've done anything that you can look at and admire and take to that interview. For instance, we had a candidate one time who got to do the hammer throw in the Olympics, and we started the interview with that conversation of, tell me about that. How cool is that? And he was brightened up right from the get-go and ready to talk with us because he had this experience that we were excited to hear about that he could share with us and just completely break the ice. And now we're in a real conversation with a human being.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
Making it
Yeah.
personal, connecting right away. Super important.
Yeah, make them feel important. They are. You're taking the time to interview them. They are important.
I mean, if this person's going to join your work family, don't you want to make sure that you make the time to get to know them and make sure it's a good fit? Or do you just let strangers in your house, hanging out in your living room at night? Who's that? I don't know. Resume looked good. Resume looked good. What are they doing here? I actually really don't know. I didn't prepare for that. Yeah, they just. I mean, is it
Well, if you
okay
grew
to
up
sleep
like
right there
Tara
in the
and
chair?
I, then mom invited anyone over for dinner. So it could have been the kid that mowed the lawn.
Did you guys get to check the resume first?
Oh, no. That was a blind interview we didn't know we were having.
That's so good. That's
Yeah,
so good.
prepare though. I think that's a great tip. And in that preparation, not only preparing your questions, but prepare by, like you said, really getting to know what's been presented from that person as far as the resume or any research that you can do on them as a human.
And then, I think tied to that, let's talk a little bit about from the other point of view. Like if you're interviewing for a job, Tara or Alex or Lindsay, and you show up to that company and the person that you're meeting with hasn't looked at your resume, they don't have like a set list of questions, it doesn't seem like they've prepared at all. Like what impression does that leave on you as a job applicant?
Unprepared. Most likely, you're going to be interviewing with somebody who would be in a leadership role. So for them to come with nothing almost leads you to be like, oh gosh, is it going to be chaos behind those doors when I go to work for that company? Just almost, we could talk about policies and no, nothing in place. For a billboard lawyer, it would be their playground, we'll say, but probably not a great
Yeah.
experience.
No, but I think you're right. I mean, what you're talking about is the first impression is like, well, if this is what leadership looks like, then I don't know that I want to be led by a group of people that aren't prepared and don't take things like who's coming into their house seriously.
Yeah, it's that feeling of I wasn't important enough for them to take a moment and look at what I submitted with my resume or find out a little bit about me before we met together. That doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good from either side. If somebody came in as an interviewee and they were like, what do you guys do here? Well, did you look at the website? Have you done any research? As an interviewer, you'd feel that same way. So you want to give your interviewees that same level of importance. Make them feel important.
Yeah, make them feel important.
Definitely adds to the questions I would ask as an interviewee. It would be, I'd now have to start gauging, like, is this normal? Is this everybody? Is this like a week that's on fire? Is like I give the benefit of the doubt. I'd definitely ask a bunch more questions, but you're right. We have initially started on, as opposed to, all right, here we go. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, along those lines, and it ties directly into this, like Tara, how often have I forced you or asked you to interview a candidate?
Forced me? Never.
Yeah, never. Like I've never said to you, you have to interview this person, have I?
Never.
Because you were very candid earlier in this talk that you don't really prefer to do it, right?
That is
It's just not your thing. Well, it's very important that when you pick the people to represent your company and interview people, that they're people that want to do that. Now, my opinion, Tara's phenomenal. Like I would trust her to interview anybody, but she doesn't like doing it. Like it's just not her cup of tea, right? If I asked her, she'd say, of course, but that's not her thing. And I'd rather have interviewing be something that, like Lindsay, for example, loves interviewing. She's great at it. And I'd rather Lindsay, who loves doing it, do it because she's going to enjoy it and she's going to be prepared and she's going to nerd out on all that stuff. Whereas Tara's going to be like, oh my God, do I have to meet with another person again?
I'll be like, they were charming. We'll take them.
And if it doesn't work out, just remember this moment because I never want to have to interview again.
Not my fault. No.
That's right. Yep. But yeah, I mean, we talk about prepare because I can remember early career. I interviewed coming out of Notre Dame Law School. That sounds like a shameless plug, but coming out of Notre Dame, I interviewed a lot of law firms and consulting firms, whatever, and I was really impressed by the company that I ultimately took a job with, which was at the time Arthur Andersen. I was blown away at their level of interest and professionalism, and just the whole like process that like every person I met with was like really interested. Every person had like read my resume, had great questions, really engaged. Like, I mean, I felt already as an applicant like, wow, I really want to work here, right? And you contrast that with a couple of law firms that I interviewed with, where like it was a complete mixed bag of sometimes the person was like pulling out my resume on the table and they would say, hold on, I need a minute, just want to look at your resume. So they hadn't prepared at all. Other times they didn't even look at the resume. They're like, well, before I even look at your resume, and they just kind of attack me. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? I mean, it was a completely different experience. And yeah, I mean, Arthur Andersen did it right and many others didn't. And it came down to getting the right people in the room who wanted to interview, having great questions, having prepared, and really being interested in that process of getting to know me better to see if it was a good fit.
Yep.
Wouldn't you also say, though, that company, unlike some of the others, showed a genuine care for people and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
their
through that
employees?
process.
And it clearly shows, you know, and
Yeah.
how do you take that and teach other companies the quote unquote right way to do things? Because I don't want to take it all the way back, but like we could talk about your previous company and how, you know, you started and then you ultimately took the time to talk to your employees and to do things right. Like, how do you
Yeah.
get companies to see that is most important?
I mean,
Caring.
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously that caring, as we say, you know, you can't fake give a crap. I'm gonna nice and PG. And
Wait, are you talking about shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was making sure that whenever you know, we clip this up for like social media, you know, it doesn't have to do anything weird with it. You know, you can just take that clip right there. And
No
just slap it right
disclaimers
up.
there.
Yeah, no disclaimer needed. No, all that said is, and Sean, you can speak to exactly what you did, but I look at it as like, okay, good. I'm just going to put myself in the other person's shoes, look at their viewpoint. How would they like to be treated? And to Tara's point, the underscore of that, what brings that about is caring about them, right? It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's beyond even do to someone what they would, you know, what you would want to have done to you. It's even a step further. It's do unto others as they would want to have done to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what Alex just says, you know, the golden rule, which is sort of coined by Christian Faith beautifully. And, but that rule has been used in every religion way before any recorded, actually going back to the beginning of recorded history is one of the oldest ideas or concepts. There's hieroglyphs like from ancient Egypt that talk about this concept of like not doing things to others that you don't want done to yourself, right? And you know, you could kind of translate that concept into just a single word, which is called respect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, treating others well is a respectful thing to do, and keeping in mind, you know, how you'd like to be treated. You know, I mean, not to get like hard hitting, but one of the things to think about is, especially if you've got kids and you have this experience, or thinking back to when, you know, you were a child or just somebody you love, like if the person sitting in, you know, if the person walking through that door that you're going to interview was your son or your daughter, like it was a loved one, like how much more attention and care would you give to them, right? You probably, I'm guessing, give them a little bit more. Well, you don't need to like pretend the person is like a family member, but if you just decide that they're important and then act in a way that communicates that they were important, they'll know it, they'll feel it, and you're much more likely to attract the best talent if you do that. You're much more likely to attract people that what's that say?
Don't be a jerk.
Amen.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, just don't be a jerk. And Terry, I mean, yeah, you touched on for years. I focused on really the third, which was just is the person good at doing the job, and I cared less about the hard work or the upbeatness of them, and it showed. Like our culture struggled, and it got built out of neglect, and there was a lot of things I did wrong in the early years of my last company, and that led to a lot of things that then needed to be fixed, which fortunately got fixed, and I was able to bring professionals like the three of you into that organization and was able to work side by side to help fix things. And I know Lindsay and I mean, all of us participated in that. So it was a big lesson learned that paying closer attention to who we bring into our home is kind of like going to impact how things are inside our house. Like,
Absolutely.
who knew, right?
Weird.
Hindsight, it's a lot easier to look back and be like, oh, duh, obvious.
Yeah.
I like to call those, water is wet realizations. Sometimes you just have those. You have that realization of like, oh, guys, did you know water is wet? Hey, if I bring jerks into the company, it's going to be jerky there. It's going to be awful, right? It's, it's one of those things that you can look back and really make the connection and figure and realize. And then the most important thing is just, learn from that and move forward. Like you can't go back and mess with the past. You can change your viewpoint about it, but you can't really change the actual things that happened. So you know what? You can operate in the future. That's where you can make changes.
Well, but you also get to share, like we're doing now, real life. Here's what I did. Here's then what I did afterwards. And look at where you're at now.
We'll save you some
Yeah.
time. You should do this.
Time. Very
Yeah.
valuable.
Speaking of that time saving, though, in that preparation before you go into a round of interviews or, opening up a position, I was just thinking that similar to the relationship stuff, when I really figured it out and I did my research and I had an understanding of what I needed in my life before I went into those dates, the time it took me to find the right person to be my husband was a lot shorter, and I had a lot less interviews to get to that point. So doing that research and looking at all of the data ahead of time before you go in and start, setting up interviews and making those phone calls can also just shorten the time to hire, because you've got a small, you're not just casting a net out and talking to everybody that comes in. You're a lot more pointed about who you're setting up those interview calls with, and you can often find the right person for the role a lot quicker.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, as a
Because
wrap,
hiring fatigue is a thing. Sorry.
Oh, no, please say that again.
Is that hiring fatigue is a thing. Absolutely.
Oh,
If you've got 40 interviews for that one role, if you could have cut that down to 10 by doing a little bit more research on the front end, probably won't be as hard to get through.
Yeah, it's also important to remember that this conversation with the job applicant may be one of the most important conversations you have. I mean, this could be the person that helps your organization do things they were never able to do before more effectively. And I think treating every person with that level of importance and that level of care not only is the right thing to do in terms of how you treat other people, but it's also the smart thing to do for your business. It's the thing that's going to differentiate you from others and the thing that's going to help you succeed in the marketplace where others fail. And that's that, candidly, most leaders don't make the time to really put the energy and activity and heart into hiring. And in many instances, it's kind of viewed as a nuisance or a chore or like oh, God, I got another interview, or like, or, so-and-so asked me to interview such and such. And gosh, yeah. And it just becomes this whole thing that is negative, as opposed to this thing that could be super positive. Like, hey, we're talking about expanding our family. We're talking about, increasing the size of our organization and bringing this person, or filling a role that needs to be filled. And like, let's really make sure that we get better, brighter, or whatever, like whatever it is you're going for. And that you get that, and that the person that's taking the job knows that. So anyway, but I know we got to wrap up here. So I definitely want to let folks kind of chime in on kind of some last tips or ideas on advice you'd give to someone who is out there right now looking for that candidate, looking for the person that they want to bring into the organization, no matter what the size of the company is?
Advice, I think,
Absolutely.
start off is just really define what you're looking for and culture before, so you can have that, lined out, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say set aside any pressure you've got, either put on yourself or put on by others about, oh, we need someone for this role.
Yeah.
Right now.
Set that
Yeah.
aside. Make sure you're really getting the right person, not just a quick solution.
Super important.
Agreed. Yeah, those are two great tips and top tier in my opinion. And I will just reiterate again, the preparation. Do that preparation. When your applicants start sending in resumes, do the work ahead of time. Do a little bit of research on them, read the resumes, and then set up your interviews from there.
Yeah. And then, I think lastly, as you're conducting interviews and you're talking with people, do your best to get your own biases out of the way, your own prejudices out of the way, your own opinions of things, and really just try to be in the moment, listening to the person in front of you, looking at the person in front of you, and finding out what they are about, what they're like, and do your best not to make up things in your head that aren't there. It's actually just really good advice to avoid lawsuits, but it's also really good advice to really get to know a person in front of you is don't prejudge people. Don't obviously discriminate. Don't. There's a lot of things that are illegal. Don't do those things. Follow the law, but really just look at the person in front of you and make time to prepare and understand that person and set aside whatever biases or whatever may be in your head or things that you've heard. Just throw it in the trash and just put this person at the front of your priority list in that moment so that they feel that way. And you'll find that you'll do a better job of really seeing things that maybe others miss in the interview because you're really giving them your full attention. And you'll find that you'll do just a better job of making better choices on who to hire or not hire instead of falling into some of the common pitfalls that all of us or many of us have fallen into before, where you hire the wrong person and then you got to let them go in 6 months or whatever. And then there's anyway, there really aren't any good excuses. We just didn't do a great job hiring. It's just that straightforward. Like, we should have done a better job filtering. We should have done a better job up front. And if we had done a better job, we probably wouldn't have this problem right now. There are exceptions to what I just said, but most of the time, more than 50% of the time, it was a hiring issue.
And I do want
Yes.
to just reiterate, emphasize one of the things you said. Don't be illegal.
Don't be illegal.
You made me change my sign.
Yes, follow the law, definitely.
That's right.
And learn from those instances when, things don't necessarily go as well as you would have liked and that wasn't a great hire or wasn't a great fit from the company. Don't just throw it in the trash and move on to the next one. Take stock in what happened, learn from that and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you all for your time today, and I appreciate you helping talk about hiring and effective things that can be done with hiring, and look forward to talking next week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
So-
All right, see ya.
Happy hiring. Bye.
Happy hiring.